All right, welcome everybody. We are very excited to have MX with us today. We have Chris and Jennifer, all-star team with an all-star company. MX is a great tech company in the fintech space, just an absolute powerhouse. So we're excited to hear from them and the different roles that they have available. So Chris, I'll turn the time over to you to get us going.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. I guess it's 1 o'clock already. Appreciate you taking the time. Background on me. My name's Chris Leeson. I've been with MX, almost 2.5 years now. Feels like five, but I been with MX for years. Been recruiting for about the last 10 years, but I support all of our sales recruiting over here, along with Jen on the call as well. But I've recruited anything over at MX from advocacy, which has some sales components. I've done some CX, which is like customer success, but mainly a lot of my hiring has been in kind of the sales department, but been in the recruiting industry for 10 years, which is sales in and of itself. But going to jump into some things after my colleague Jen introduces herself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jen Salaya. As Chris said, we both are recruiters here at MX, and I support usually G&A, help out with sales occasionally, have a background in sales recruiting, and I'm here today to focus talking to you about our culture and our women's ERG a little bit later on after Chris shares some more about who we are.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. I'm going to share my screen real quick and kind of jump into a quick little deck here, but it's a really exciting time here. Obviously, Jen and introduce ourselves, but who we are at MX, I think is absolutely fascinating. Really, we have a mission statement, and this really what drives us home as an organization is really empowering the world to become financially strong. So what we do is really three different buckets over here. Is this idea of data, connectivity, experience, but I want you to kind of picture your finances and how you view your finances on a regular basis, in all of the different things of aspects of your life outside of just the traditional bank and credit union. Our goal is to teach people 360-degree access into what their finances actually are. There's some stats out there that a majority of individuals actually live paycheck to paycheck, and if we're able to, at the end of the day, give people the freedom and understanding of where their money's actually going and how it's being spent, is really what drives us home as a mission and a culture, because a lot of the people here at MX really live by that mission. I think that's what we look for in people is, hey, we can train them in some things, but if you're here for the right reasons and what we're doing, there could be a spot for you. But a little bit of background on us. We've been around since 2010. Last year, we raised $300 million in Series C funding. And in August of 2019, we raised another 150 million. So in less than 3 years, we raised $450 million in funding. We had the largest valuation of a Silicon Slopes company. For those who don't know, Silicon Slopes is kind of the big tech scene here in Utah, and we're growing like rapid. We've added 450 people in the last 2 years. To give you some context, I was employed 280. We're now up to about 750, give or take. And we've been nominated one of the best places to work in fintech. And when we say fintech, I want you to think about financial technology. So anything to do with financial technology is kind of what fintech is. But kind of going into overall what we've done so far is really a few different things. Like I said, this idea of take the idea of the money experience, and that's really at the end of the day what MX stands for, the money experience, anytime you interact with finances. But really it's all about data and how we do things. So I want you to envision if you've ever bought a loan or interacted with Venmo or real estate, like any sort of things, MX could be the back office engine that makes everything run. So this idea of connectivity, so we go in and enhance things. So I want you to think about whenever you uploaded your bank account to like a Venmo or another customer that's powered by MX or one of our competitors in the marketplace. If you've ever added a bank account to, if you ever bought a house and people are depositing money into your bank account, those micro deposits, and all that is MX. So our company's grown so much, and if you think about COVID and what's happened, we've only accelerated our growth because people no longer have to go into an institution. So when I say institution, like a bank, it's very, very crazy out there with how things are worked. If you think about crypto and payments, like we're in those industries on a regular basis. But at the end of the day, what we do is very technical and it's very convoluted at times, but it's really exciting and there's so much need for the industry. But through all of that, the biggest thing I would say is what makes us different is our culture. We talk about our team, and I'll chime in a minute, but I'd love for Jen to kind of give her perspective on our culture coming from not only here, she doesn't live here in Utah. And so I'd love to get her perspective of how she's ingrained herself into our culture and kind of get her thoughts from being a remote employee from the very beginning.
Yeah, I love that. I think that a lot of times people ask about culture, right? Especially as a candidate looking at new opportunities. And I would say that, culture is not about what's in the break room or unlimited PTO, because almost every SaaS company, fintech included, or has those. So it's like, how do you differentiate yourself? And we do that through our values. They really are the foundation to our culture. We put a lot of time and effort into what they mean. Here's an overview. You can see more on our website, but just really quickly, purposeful contribution, having an exuberance for life, founder's mindset, if not me, then who, having a foundation of trust with our colleagues. It's huge, especially as a remote employee, having objectivity and discourse, being able to have those conversations and diversity of thought, and not being a jerk about it. It's actually written in there. Cognizance, just being aware and empathetic of others, and iterative innovation. As a startup, even as a late stage startup, we are still constantly iterating and being better and asking ourselves, how can we do this better for ourselves, for our clients, for candidates, employees, and everybody involved. With regards to the remote aspect, I'm glad, Chris, that you brought that up, because I will say I've worked with other SaaS companies that actually consider themselves leaders in remote work. And I'm going to say that MX does it better. And I know MX was kind of forced into it, as a lot of companies were because of COVID. And they have done an excellent job of making remote employees feel included. And there's a sense of belonging. I never feel left out. I've never felt pressured that I have to be, in the office or on site for anything. There's always an option virtually, which is wonderful. I mean, I can't speak enough to how well MX has done this, especially considering that they were thrust into it and had never done it before. Great job on that. Next slide, please. Yeah. And then just about the belonging piece, right? I did want to mention, I sit on the chair for our WIN, Women's Initiative Network, ERG. Our mission is to empower the women of MX through professional development, mentorship, and community, with the ultimate goals of career advancement and an increase in female empowerment and leadership. We also thought about a theme this year, especially going into International Women's Day. And the theme that we've come up with is the power of advocacy, and just learning how and why to advocate for myself, for my network, and my community. So that is also a huge focus for us this year in any of the events that we're going to be doing. Some of the things that we've already done, we've done a clothing drive for women. We donated $10,000 to women-owned businesses. 2 businesses were selected, and they were selected by our community here at MX, and that we did that on International Women's Day. We've also had speakers from Capital G and Suncoast Credit Union with regards to breaking the bias, which again was on International Women's Day. It was phenomenal. Some upcoming events that we have going on. We're going to be focused on career advancement, doing a speaker series there, and a women's leadership conference. And those are just a couple of things that we have. We also have an L&D component, and again, that mentorship component. So again, when we talk about our values and we talk about our culture, I think of it as, belonging and inclusion. And what does that look like? In addition to our women's ERG, we also have a veterans ERG, BIPOC ERG. So there are others as well, but I wanted to obviously highlight this one today because we're speaking to a group of women working in sales.
Yeah, and my own personal interactions with Jen, I mean, she doesn't know this, but I'll tell her this now. But I consider Jen like a mentor to me, even though it's funny, we've been together a year now, and
Almost
we've
a year.
met once in the entire year. But I consider Jen kind of a mentor just because as our values kind of stick up to it, this idea of, you know, if not me, then who? If not now, then when? Jen's willing to step up, but that's just the type of culture we have within the organization. There's so many women and obviously others as well within MX that I consider mentors or people within the company that I am truly proud to represent, as well as almost advocate for within MX, and the empowerment that I hear from them, and their voice is very, very powerful. And I've learned so much in my 2.5 years here from everyone here at MX. But I can't tell you, how many folks within the Win Network that have had a tremendous impact on what we do at MX. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about our core values and living up to them. And it's reflected in the rest of our Win Network as well as the rest of our groups. But as part of MX, like, those core values are really who we are, and living those every single day. And you see that through our interview process of how we look at candidates. It's, hey, do you believe in kind of looking from the top down? Hey, are you mission driven? Like, looking at what we are as a mission, and then can you live these core values? And at the end of the day, those are what's going to drive us and take us to new heights as we continue to grow, which has we've done exponentially over the last little bit. Jen, is there anything else you want to add within that?
No.
Awesome.
I'm good.
So obviously we're hiring, but I kind of want to talk a little bit about, we're in sales, right? And so I'd love to talk a little bit more about the sales organization, just kind of as a whole, as it's continued to grow. It was 2 years ago, 40 people. And as we've continued to grow, we've grown it up to about 100 or be about 120 folks over the next, couple weeks when people start, but tremendous growth over the last 2 years. And it's a very exciting time because at the end of the day, we're hiring people remotely. I think that's one thing that's been very fascinating about MX is, yeah, the company has been thrust into hiring remotely, but sales has actually been hiring remotely before COVID. My first hire here was someone in Colorado, and we're based in Utah. So we do it really, really well. And we've actually, our sales team, specifically our enablement team, who is driven by our director of sales enablement. She is phenomenal. She's come up with so many different things, but the thought leadership and provoke, but they've actually won awards for best onboarding for our sales department in terms of onboarding remote employees across the entire board, which speaks volumes to the team and what they've built overall. And we're hiring across all positions within sales right now. When we say anything, we're talking sales operations, which isn't, everyone, it's not just the direct sales, sales operations, analytics. We have sales development roles. I know there was a speech before this around teachers, and we've seen a lot of teachers making a shift into sales from an SDR perspective to kind of do an industry shift. And we've seen a huge success in looking at those type of candidates. We have account executives, don't need fintech experience with sales experience. We have technical sales, which is like solution consultants. We have account managers. Like, we have roles open across the board. We even have a division called advocacy, which is advocating for our clients within the fintech space. So all across the board, we're hiring within sales, and the idea of diversity of thought and leadership is something that we constantly are looking out for across the organization. I haven't seen any questions come through, but does anyone have any questions about MX, what we're doing, career advice, or anything that Jen and I can help answer in that regard if anything comes through?
I don't see any questions yet. I said hi to Aaron. We're connected on LinkedIn. I think he's maybe somebody who participates maybe last time in the Fairstream event. Let's see. Okay, Sarah, working remotely currently, and the onboarding was horrible. So glad to hear that y'all won awards in that. Yes, one thing with regards to that is, even though we are back in the office, we have decided to continue doing onboarding remotely because, again, it's worked out really well. Yeah. I think as a newer employee myself, I was extremely impressed with all the training and everything that was provided. So it's a great foundation. our L&D team does a great job of setting all employees up for success.
Yeah, and as well as within the sales specifically as well, like it's very structured. It's very there's lunch and learns for remote employees. We do a lot of great things. I think in not just onboarding, but to engage remote employees. We have MX Gives, which is a huge event where we actually provide money for people that work remotely to go and work to donate to various different charities around their own location if they can't come to Utah. Like the engagement level is top notch. But in terms of a sales onboarding, it's very structured. You have a mentor you're assigned, and it's very driven that way over curriculum based. And it's not only self-driven, but it's also manager driven. And there's a lot of check-ins that go involved because I work remotely and I live 10 minutes from the office. And so level of engagement is critically important to me and myself. And being that I recruit sales, most of my sales leadership actually sits remotely. So it's very critical, the level of engagement that we need to have.
We've got 2 more questions. I'll take one and I'm going to have Chris take one. One is, do y'all, I love that. Do y'all hire people without bachelor's degrees? Yes. Some of our roles do not require bachelor's degrees. If we do, it will be stated in the job profile. And if we don't, it won't. And a lot of times, even in the job profile, it'll say bachelor's degree or equivalent experience. So there's a lot of flexibility there. So do not let that deter you from applying to a role ever. Also, if you don't meet every single tick mark, still apply, because there may be some other transferable skills or other things that you can communicate, whether it's through your cover letter or your resume or a screen with one of us, that helps elaborate. So I know that, studies have shown specifically women will sometimes not apply to a role because they don't meet all of the criteria. And so anytime I have the opportunity to do so, I encourage you all to do it, to apply. If it's a role you're interested in, if you have any experience doing it or any transferable skills, please take the chance and apply. The next question is from Aaron. What are the best ways, and I'll let you answer this, Chris, what are the best ways to stand out as a candidate after applying for the position?
It's a lot. I think there's a couple different ways you can go with it. Just letting it sit there. I think messaging, LinkedIn and doing your homework on the actual position is going to be critically important, and find a recruiter or two that work at the company. But I would also encourage you to see if you can do some research on the hiring manager and proactively reach out as well and see what kind of information you can provide. I get a lot of people that just connect with me, across the board. I can't tell you how many connections I get a day. And it's just like, I want to add to my network. There's no personalized touch to the connection. It's like, hey, Chris, I saw you worked at MX and here's the information they kind of need. But I also think taking it a step further to try and connect with hiring managers on LinkedIn, especially in sales, where sales folks they should be on LinkedIn all the time, because that's their job, is to go out, connect, prospect, sell. So they should be connecting with folks. But the issue is they're getting a lot of connections too. And so being able to personalize your touch to say, let's say an SDR role or a sales development role. Hey, Chris, I applied for the position of the SDR. Based on the background, here's how I feel like I'm qualified. Not doing it for myself, but also trying to find the hiring manager. And it doesn't have to be the exact one, but trying to navigate that. But it also doesn't have to be a hiring manager. It can also be maybe another person on the team, and being that proactive. I can't tell you how many times I get calls from internal folks saying, hey, I had this person reach out to me on LinkedIn. They were super interested. They actually connected and I had a call with them. I think we should put them in for an interview. Then you create an internal advocate for yourself rather than just sending out LinkedIn messages and emails, because they will get lost. It's all about personalizing the touch. Jen, do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't, but we have some more questions. I mean, I do, but we have some more questions.
No, that's great.
So one of the things that Skylar brought up is that a lot of our roles do focus on significant background and knowledge around finance in general. What do you do if your previous roles haven't dealt a lot in the finance sector? I will tell you, I did not work in fintech before I came to MX. I'm a recruiting expert, right? So I leaned on that. I've worked in SaaS, but I've never worked in fintech. So I'm going to use myself as kind of the answer and example to that question. Again, encouraging people to find other areas of a job profile that you do have experience in and highlighting that, because we can teach you about what we do. We just, that can be taught. But years of experience, whether it's in, being in sales and being a sales professional, that's not something we necessarily have the time to do, but we can teach you about MX, we can teach you about FinTech and finance. At least that's my take on it. Chris might have a little bit of a different take.
I mean, it's nice, but it's not preferred. I mean, same thing with my background. I actually had no corporate, experience before coming to MX. I was straight, basically contract recruiting is all I recruited for almost 7 years. And I remember interviewing, they're like, why should we select you for a corporate recruiting job? And I ended up getting the job, and here I am 2.5 years later. So I don't think it's just applicable to sales, it's applicable to any job. But I think that there's a lot of things that you can do outside of the finance. But I also think where it's going to come in is that, having a curiosity about us. I think that is a big piece of it. I get a lot of people who are, I'm interested, and then they don't go do the research on what we do. I think, starting with that is a big piece.
And going back to our culture and knowing what our values are, being familiar with them, and knowing which one resonates with you. Because out of those 7, one of them should resonate with you as a candidate, a good candidate, and somebody that would do well here. And in all fairness, if none of them resonate with you, then we're probably not a good fit. Like, in all fairness, probably don't hear a lot of recruiters say that, but it's the truth. Larissa shared that her mom got a job doing that after I told her to go ahead and apply, even though she thought maybe she wasn't qualified because she wasn't going to. So I love that. And Alexandra would like to know, she has 5 years of ops experience in iBanking, and she tried to apply for the senior sales operations analyst role, but the link did not take me to the application. Is the role still available?
The operations analyst role, depending on
senior sales, yeah.
That role is no longer open. However, I am literally just waiting on it I have another one opening that I'm waiting on approvals on. So if you want to connect with me directly on LinkedIn, it's just, Chris.Leith. I would be more than happy to, have a conversation about it. It got filled. And so I'd love to connect with you offline on that. We're literally waiting on approvals to come through over the next little bit.
So Alexandra, I just typed in Chris's, the spelling of his name. And
Leeson. Most people put
yes,
2 S's.
Leeson.
There we go.
So Alexandra, there you go. There's your answer. So you can go ahead, and once he gets that up and running, you can move forward with that. I don't see any more questions or messages. And it looks like Skylar has stepped away for a minute. Anything else? Anything else we can help with?
And I would just mention one last thing about, MX. I think we have a saying over here, and I think this is kind of critical. And when I talk about doing research and making personalized touches, I think this goes hand in hand, is we have this thing around what we'd say build MX. And I think, when Skylar said, hey, why choose MX? I think if you want to be part of a company that's changing not only technology in the fintech space, but also empowering the world of finances and really giving people 360-degree access in terms of what they're doing on a regular basis, as well as building a phenomenal team and a phenomenal culture, we are at the precipice of doing something phenomenal, not only across Utah, but across the country, that is really going to impact every single person on a day-to-day basis. We can impact anyone that sits, making $1 million down to people that are penny pinching on a regular basis. And I think being mission driven as a company, it resonates with us. We've grown so much and so fast. But if you listen to all of the conversations we have and how we lead off, meetings, and you hear our executive speaks, not only at MX but across the country, and I would highly have people take a look at Jane Barrett in terms of what she does and represents MX. But this idea of empowering the world to become financially strong lives and resonates throughout MX. And if you can resonate with that, you will fit in here. And if you want to build, we're a team of builders. And when I say builders, we're building a company. we have a lot of OKRs this year around operating efficiently and building towards something phenomenal that is going to really impact, every single person on a regular basis. I think that's what drives me and what's kept me here for so long. Is what we do is absolutely fascinating, but I resonate with our mission so much because I grew up with a divorced household and my mom living paycheck to paycheck. And I remember literally going to the grocery store with coupons, and like my treat for the week when I was like 8 years old was a box of fruit snacks, and it was $1. And that's literally what like my treat was. No candy, no nothing. And my mom feeding my sister and I on $50 a week. And that's literally what we did for 5 years while my mom dug herself out of a ton of debt with growing up. And that's why, that's my purpose, is my why, is so being that I come from that and that I can impact my family and live and give my boys and my wife the life that they deserve. And I use MX on a regular basis. And that's why my why, coming from where I was growing up, living paycheck to paycheck with my mom, seeing her struggle, working like crazy hours when we would go to my dad's house, like that is my why of who I am here at MX.
Chris.
If Jen knows me, I don't share a lot of that stuff, and so I'm very to the point. But knowing
that's the first time I've heard that story. So thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that, because I think that it is important we all have a story. We all know somebody who has a story about finances impacting our lives. And even today with things that are happening with inflation and things like that. And the thing that MX does is it makes your finances accessible in a way that you can easily understand your finances so that you can be financially strong. So just to kind of put a final thought on that. Skylar says your mom is a true legend. Thanks for sharing your experience.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it. But no, I appreciate everyone's time. Like I said, feel free to reach out to me. And even if you're not looking, connect with us. We have constant roles coming open. We're getting more roles open here as we speak. So wait 5 minutes, something changes over here, but it's an exciting time to build. But I appreciate everyone taking the time, and have a great rest of your week, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, MX. Thanks, Chris and Jen. We really appreciate you being here. Thanks for sharing your personal stories. And I think that's a testament to the culture that is at MX. Just very good, humble, personable people, working hard and creating something great. So thank you. Okay, everyone, head on over, leave the MX session and jump on over to the VIA session. We have that popping up right now. We're going to be going live here in just a minute. Final session, but still great opportunities.